I have noticed growth professionally and personally, and I've worked with therapists in the past and everything, and nothing has been as tangible as what I've seen here in mindset shifts, in daily habits and beliefs. For people who have historically been in more structured jobs or in accounting and finance, and it is very structured, trust the process and don't worry about the how of the program, because you will get there and results are going to exceed expectations, whether it is you end with a new job or like me, I'm still in the same job and I'm happier than I could have imagined.
Hi, I'm Blake Schofield, founder and CEO of The Bridge to Fulfillment, mom to 3, USA Today top 10 professional coach, and former corporate executive who got tired of sacrificing my life for a comfortable paycheck. My mission is to expand women's perspectives and empower them to achieve greater impact at home and work without sacrifice. This is The Bridge to Fulfillment. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Bridge to Fulfillment. Today, I'm super excited to welcome my client, Melissa, to really be able to share her story and her journey with you. And for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know that when we bring on clients, I'm always looking for women who either have different circumstances or backgrounds in what we've talked about, and have also had some really instrumental learnings or personal growth or results that really can help expand your perspective about what's truly possible when you are in a place that you're unfulfilled in your career, and how positively your life can shift within just a matter of months. So with that, it's so wonderful to have you here, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am too. So why don't we get started? I would love for you to share a little bit about your background and what was going on in your life and your career when we connected.
Yeah, awesome. So my background is in public accounting. I was at a consulting firm, tied to external reporting calendars, very what I would historically consider black and white, right or wrong, accounting, finance, etc. And I was working for the past 10 or so years, and I got my CPA, checked the box. That was an accomplishment. Got promotions, checked the box, another accomplishment. And then, something in the back of my mind, I've always wondered if this path was right for me. And then, in the past year or so before starting this program, I just started to feel extremely unhappy, unfulfilled, not sure, I was starting to look at new jobs, new companies, and everything just felt the same. I knew my skills. I knew I was good at what I was doing, but I didn't feel good about it. And that's when I got introduced to this program through a friend that went through it as well. I was in a dark spot. Friends and family were starting to comment that I wasn't myself, which was extremely upsetting. I knew it was mostly due to work, right? We spend most of our time working 80 plus hours a week. And I just felt consumed by work. I felt it was taking over my life. And I just knew I had to change and take a first step in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And so when we first connected and talked about the program, I know that there were some, there's that, oh my gosh, this looks so amazing. Is it really possible for me? And then there are all of the questions that come when you look at making a shift, especially if you've never worked with a coach before, which most of my clients haven't, or it's the first time you're really kind of stepping out to invest in yourself. What were some of those things that you went through or questions that you had about taking this step forward?
For me, it was, this seems too good to be true. Like, how am I going to get there? How is that end result going to happen to me? It was also about to be year end. And for me in my role, that is an extremely busy time where I didn't even have time to work out, let alone work on this program, be able to put in the time to this program. So that was definitely a deterrent as well. And I think one of the first times I connected with Blake, I said both of those things. I said, I thought I was all alone here saying, I don't know if you know how accounting works, but year end, it's going to be busy, everything going on. And she kind of assured me now's the time. What are you waiting for? I would say the time. And also it just seemed to me unrealistic that I was going to be able to get out of this, what I was seeing with other success stories and what I was seeing online.
Yeah. Now that you've been through this process, what do you wish you had known when you were dealing with those doubts?
to tell myself just to stop thinking that way. I mean, I think just thinking back, I wish I told myself to do this sooner and to trust myself, trust the process. I already talked about how I said I didn't have time, but this program proved that I did have time. I was just letting work consume me.
And we'll get into it in a little bit, but some of the massive shifts that you had in the program actually changed the dynamic of what happened for you for the year end in some really impactful ways. Actually, I said that. I think we should talk about it now because we may not loop back to it. I often tell women that come to me, the majority of women who come to me are time-starved, lacking balance, either in burnout or near burnout. So time is always one of the biggest questions that I get. And I often say that's why it's one of the first things we work on in the program. And that on average, 3 to 4 weeks in the program, you'll feel like a different person, even though you're in the same job. How did that come to fruition for you, knowing that you were, at the most stressful time or coming up to the most stressful time in your job? How did you see that come to fruition? And did it change what your year end looked like versus would have looked like if you hadn't joined the program?
Absolutely. I started the program and I'd wake up, I'd just keep snoozing because I was exhausted. And then when I finally opened my eyes, I would open my email, see what I missed overnight with the global teams and everything, respond to what I could, get up, open my laptop and start working. And then I'd work for the next 10 hours. Starting the program, step 1, get control. And I was like, there's no way I could do this. And then through encouragement, I think I had my own mental blocks there. It was baby steps for me. It was first implementing the calendar and sticking to it. And that was huge. And not just outside of working hours, but also during working hours, setting aside time for meetings versus focus time. And that was huge for me. I think starting the day, not touching my work email, even if it was for, an hour, and having that hour in the morning for me, for my morning magic, that was huge. I started working out again. I really let myself slip there. And it wasn't body image aside, like working out just makes me feel better. Mentally, my mental health, making time for social events during the week. I think before this program, I would never meet a friend for dinner. I'd say, work's crazy, work's busy, and life's too short for that. And that was another thing. And I think going back a couple months, I regret not doing that sooner and missing opportunities the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest fears we often have, especially those of us that come from the mentality of putting work first, which is definitely who I was and how I was raised, is we worry that if we actually build in the social time or the time to take care of ourselves, that our performance will slip at work, or our boss will be unhappy, or maybe people will see that maybe we're not as good as they think that we are. All of these limiting beliefs often come up. Can you share what's happened for you since you've been able to gain this better balance during the most busy time of the year and give back to yourself? How has that impacted the quality of work and what you've been doing in your job?
For my job, I recently had my year-end performance review and it exceeded expectations. My boss commented how she's even noticed a difference in me because I did, I gave her and, my team a heads up, like I'm going to have these blocks on my calendar. And please respect them. And through, I think, just how I carry myself at work, I'm not drained. I let myself recharge. And we got through the craziest time of year. And, on days where I fell into my old habits and started to then stress or frustration creep up, I would take a step back and recognize, it's because I didn't start my day right, or it's because I didn't do my morning magic, or nope, I hit snooze. I didn't do my morning walk, something like that. So I think work recognized that I'm bringing a better Melissa to work and being better in my deliverables and everything.
I love that so much. Again, women come to us often to transition into something else and are always often surprised that we make their current life so much better. And I think it's a beautiful example of how you can be so stressed in your job and believe that you don't have the time, or believe that you actually, if you did take care of yourself, that something negative would happen. But consistently over and over again for the last 5 years, I've seen exactly what you're saying, which is when you have the right boundaries and foundation and you get some of the mental blocks out of your way, you perform better in your current job and you have more space and time for yourself and more space and time to create the life that you want. And at the end of the day, that's why so many of us are looking to make changes, is because we don't feel like we have that. So my goal is always to get that as quickly as possible. So then you have the tools to be able to enjoy your life while you're figuring out what's next and how you want to continue to grow. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that said, you kind of shared, because that tends to be one of the first big wins when you come into the journey. What were some things that you learned in the journey or have really shifted or changed your life?
I think my biggest takeaway is my mindset shift. I think I came in here, I was very much type A perfectionist. I had my to-do list and I would check it off. It was on to the next thing. Wouldn't take a second to reflect back how I got there, how I accomplished it. It was just, yes, it was done. That was a huge thing for me. For me, it was being perfect all the time. I think the mindset of it's okay not to be perfect. Progress is better than perfection was the biggest takeaway mindset shift. I think it just changed everything for me, how I think about work and also how I think about some personal reflections and personal events. I think that mindset shift, also the lessons from the success and empowerment calls and listening to other women's stories, because at the end of the day, this community, like we are all so similar. We do have similar backgrounds of that perfectionism, thinking we're all alone, thinking we have to be the ones to take it on, carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. And that is not the case. We need to celebrate the small wins. And that was another huge, I think, mindset shift for me. And overall, just like shifting the beliefs of it has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. That was probably one of the biggest stressful things in my life. But I didn't realize that perfectionism was, number one, not just who I was. Often I think people don't understand perfectionism is a result of how we dealt with some form of trauma in our life and feeling out of control. And it's not something that is actually the reason why we're successful. It actually creates tremendous stress and anxiety. And so when you say for you, Melissa, that it was a huge unlock, how did that change either how you feel or what's happening in your life on a day-to-day basis? For women who don't understand, because they are perfectionists and they are living that life.
Yeah, it all came down to, and this came up in a success and empowerment call, and then it also was in our book that I still have by my nightstand, and I revisit it almost every night. It's the idea of, is it a fact or is it an opinion? Like, what is the idea of being perfect? And most of it is the opinion that we hold ourselves to. It's not fact. And I think when going back to being perfect, what is that? It's an opinion. And a lot of times we hold ourselves to a higher standard than we do others. And I think that I have that on a Post-it right on my laptop, my work laptop. I have it on my mirror of, is it fact or is it an opinion? And when I start to get stressed, or on those days where I'm starting to feel some sort of way with anxiety, and it's taking a step back and it's asking myself that question.
How has that impacted you? So in the past, if you would have felt that stress or anxiety has to be done a certain way, what would you have done? And now what do you do when you stop and you look at that Post-it note and you remind yourself it's just an opinion?
In the past, I would have let it bubble and fester, and I would have gotten to the point of breaking, whether that was crying, whether it was staying online really late to work and figure it out on my own and make it perfect that way. It caused me to be anxious, depressed, compulsive. And it was just like, it took over. Like I wasn't able to focus on anything else. And I think now I take a deep breath, walk away from my computer. I might go on a walk. I might just step outside for a minute, and it's going to be okay. Is it fact or an opinion? And I haven't had the time yet where it was fact. There were times where I thought it was fact, but it was indeed opinion. So I still work on that, and it is balancing. I'm still a work in progress about the techniques and everything. But on days where I forget or I might slip my mind, like I do recognize a difference.
That's one of my favorites, because now you've gained back hours or days, or in some cases, if it's a big one, weeks that you would have spent in that emotional cycle of beating yourself up or reworking the same thing over and over and over again, or worrying about how your boss would feel about this. And is it good enough? And all of those things that we do to ourselves when we've been taught or we've been in those pattern spots, that now you can stop, you can walk away. 10 minutes later, you can solve that problem and you can just move on. And there's freedom in that in such a big way.
Exactly. and being able to let it go.
You mentioned to me when we were talking before we got started that you came in with a very specific perspective about what success would look like for you in your future and in this program, and that's changed over the last several months. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I came in thinking I need a new job right now. I was actually almost about to quit my job and just thought to myself, I'll work through this program and I'm going to figure out the perfect next job. It'll be waiting for me at the end of this program. This is going to solve every single answer. I will get the answers given to me. I won't have to, I'm just going to go down the program, check the box, do the activities, and a perfect job will be at the end of this. And boy, was I wrong. The mindset shift. The work in the first month or so was definitely the most rewarding. And I will say right now I'm in the same job, but I am so much happier. Even the work I'm doing, I was able to speak of what kind of fills my cup at work and without taking on all these extra responsibilities, but just vocalizing. And now I have a project in the pipeline that I'm excited about. I think I also felt very pigeonholed being a CPA in public accounting at a large consulting firm. And I thought, okay, I know I'm good at this, but I'm not passionate about it. And where does that leave me? My skills, how does that transfer to something completely new? I think now through this program, I was amazed at Blake being able to pick out what I liked at each of my jobs and each of my roles and say, wait a second, it's not, what's the expression, throwing the baby out with the bathtub. It's taking, I still can't believe what I have been doing could translate into a job that's similar, but also different enough to give me that value add that I was looking for and that spin on it and to find my secret sauce.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how was that process of actually being able to connect the dots? Because that's, I think, to your point, when you're like, how is this possible? It seems too good to be true. I think women often believe that when it's with regard to the secret sauce, is it really possible that my skills, and you can actually help me get clarity in doing that? I think that's the biggest piece I hear all the time. How are you going to help me figure that out? What was that experience like for you when we actually uncovered your secret sauce skills and all of a sudden you went, oh my gosh, that's exactly it. That's exactly me. And wow, I can see all of these different roles in different industries where I'd be really successful and happy.
Yeah. So I remember old Melissa being like, okay, I did this in the program, check the box. I did this, check the box. I'm attending, this meeting. And I still felt like I wasn't getting there. And I know, Blake, you supported me. You were like, very clearly, it's not check the box, step away from it and come back. And I think we had a lot of back and forth on that aspect of the program. And I was admittedly my own worst enemy because I was like, no, I did it though. I put in it says 3 bullets. I put in my 3 bullets and you and I went back and forth. And I think it came down to taking a step away, coming back and being like, okay, it's this experience. It's not, I'm so fortunate and lucky that I get to do this. I don't have to do this. And Blake and the other ladies on the calls and the programs, the community was just so supportive. Women, chatting in the Zoom links, I've been there, you got this, we're all in it together type of thing. And I'm trying to think of that exact aha moment. And I think it was on a call, and I'm pretty sure I got emotional because you were like, you're picking out all these instances where it was that value add, where it wasn't your day job, it was your +1 role. And what was it? And then we realized through there what really drives me and motivates me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that exact call and it was amazing. And listen, we're all our own worst enemy. Often we don't realize that. And I often say in this program, the lessons you need to learn will show up. And it's such a beautiful thing because you have been in such a linear check the box job, but there are pieces of that linear approach that actually aren't how you work best. And so part of your journey, which I loved watching and I think is important for people to understand, is that push-pull of I'm doing this thing because I've been conditioned to do it and it feels quote unquote safe. But the reality is that's not who I am. And once we had that discussion and you really saw it, and it was like, oh, I actually am really good at coming into new situations and figuring them out. And actually, that's been all of my +1 jobs. And when you really saw that and embraced it, it was such a beautiful shift for you. And I think that's really where it unlocked things. And so, to your point, I think many times when we're perfectionists and feel we have to solve things on our own, it is a very check the box kind of thing. And you're right, this is an experience and it's a partnership. And it's that back and forth for us to remove the things that are in the way from actually uncovering the truth as it is. And that's all I see the secret sauce is. It's like, I'm just able to see who you really are and what you're truly gifted at and allow you the opportunity to see that as well. And I couldn't be more excited for you because you have such amazing skills and talents that can be applied in so many ways. And you now have the confidence, knowledge, and ability to easily articulate that to other people. And I love how you're doing that in your current job too, because again, this is a place where you're not unusual or different in saying, I have to quit. I'm exactly miserable and there's no way this is going to get better and I have to leave, to actually go, wait a second, things can be a whole lot better in my job. Things can be a whole lot better in my life within a really short period of time. And in the interim, I can drive more things in my current day-to-day work that feel more aligned with me. And that's a beautiful thing because it's just continuing to develop your skills. It's adding value to the company that you're at, and it's letting you move in the right direction of where you want to go. So I just give you a lot of kudos for that. But I also share that you're not alone in that. And it's beautiful that you've been able to see and build that journey in these last few months.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And I think my team here sees it. And to your point, like I'm happier at work. I'm being able to use those secret soft skills that we pulled out and thinking in different projects that I'm working on and different, items that I'm working on and looking ahead for this year to say, oh, I could use this. And, it's not just the check the box anymore. It's bringing my passions to work every day now.
Mm-hmm. So we haven't talked much about the job search process yet and kind of what that journey has been like for you, how that process has changed since before you came. So I'd love to open that up. What did you learn? How are you approaching it differently than how you have in the past?
I mean, so many ways. I think now I'm not settling. I think the biggest pivot in how I was looking is looking at companies first and not roles. And also the biggest thing is, or one of the bigger things is, Google is only going to tell you so much. You need to talk to people and really network and have those discussions. And even if, you don't see a role right now or not even sure how you would fit into that company, start those conversations and see what doors could be open. Or you could see something on paper that looks so great about a company and then have your first conversation and realize, oh, maybe it's not a good fit. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is looking at companies versus the roles, because I always thought in the details, the day-to-day, what is that going to look like? What's the schedule like there? But I would say it's really that shift of find a company that you care about, that you're passionate about. The culture was a non-negotiable for me. So I think that's definitely the biggest pivot there.
Awesome. And I often say we go 6 layers deeper in terms of actually understanding criteria and non-negotiables. What's your perspective on that versus how you would have? Because everyone says, yeah, you want to find the right company culture. But the way we do that, without giving away anything from a proprietary standpoint, the way we do that is very different than I think what people see or understand that to be. Mostly, honestly, because of what I learned in my own personal journey. But how is that different for you? Because I think people might listen and they go, well, yeah, of course, culture is important to me. But you understand this process and how to vet companies and how to vet the right fit in a very different way than most people. How did that change or shift your perspective?
I think a couple ways. I think historically, when I was looking at companies, I knew what I didn't want and not what I did want. And it's a lot easier to say, oh, I don't want that versus looking at something that maybe you've never had before, whether it's, I don't know, bring your pet to work day. And you're like, oh, that could be fun. But it's, the criteria that I discovered through this, similar to my secret sauce. I was like, oh, well, I liked this part of it. And that was an overlap between, the previous companies I worked. And you pulled that out. And I was like, why did I never think that at each of these, it was my, direct supervisor that had the biggest impact on me? And then realizing that, it's going to be the people that drive it. And that was the biggest thing for me. And again, you were able to pull out those pieces from all these questions that get to the root of it, of that criteria, those non-negotiables that you're looking for in a company, let alone a role. But that was the biggest thing I would say.
So you mentioned networking being a piece of this process. I find usually my clients end up saying that was one of the favorite parts of the program, but they don't start out that way. What was your perspective about, and how did you feel about networking before you joined the program? And how do you feel about it now?
I hated it. I was scared of networking. What am I going to say? How am I going to connect with these people? I'm going to be so awkward. And I think I remember being on a call and I was just starting that step of the process of networking. I was like, okay, why am I not doing it? Because I'm nervous about how I'm going to come across. And I remember another woman being like, just do it. Just do it. And I still remember the way she said it. And she's like, why am I hesitating? And that really resonated with me. And I was like, yeah, why? Why do I feel this way? Why am I hesitating? Like, I have the email drafted, just send it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And I think it was a little uncomfortable for me at the beginning, but now it's, people want to help people, I think. And that's a big thing that I'm learning through this, whether it's the women in the program or just reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn, is that there are good people in the world and they want to help. And also they want to share their experience.
Mm-hmm. And through that process, I watched and have seen several key insights or a expansion of what you thought was possible. So to your point, sometimes most of the women that come in are uncomfortable with networking. And through the process, first couple are always the most uncomfortable. And then to your point, come to be like, oh, I love this. This is so great. Can you remember sort of that moment when you had a networking conversation that expanded and opened that for you? And what was that experience like? Because for so many people listening, they may have never had it before. So could you explain what's possible on the other side when you actually understand the art and science of authentic networking?
When we were on the call and we pulled out this one piece and it was like, oh, have you explored this type of role before? And then the two women on the call were like, oh, check this out. And then another woman was like, oh, I have a connection for you as well. And through that, I connected with a leader that is awesome. And it really excites me. And, I'm actually still having those conversations and just learning more about the company that way. And these two women on the call, it was just oh, wait, I might have someone for you. And I think that also speaks to the community that you built, Blake, and, the women that are on this it really is. We're all in it together. You share your experiences and, it's women helping women.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome, lady. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. And I feel like we could probably go on forever, but our time is almost up. So with that said, let me ask you, Melissa, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything else that's on your heart that you really want to share?
Just thinking back of the past couple months, and I think I've already said this, so maybe it is repetitive, I have noticed growth professionally and personally. And I've worked with therapists in the past and everything, and nothing has been as tangible as what I've seen here in mindset shifts, in daily habits and beliefs. And that I think is greater than any type of job that's waiting for me out there. And it's, for people who have historically been in more structured jobs or in accounting and finance, and it is very structured, trust the process and don't worry about the how of the program, because you will get there and results are going to exceed expectations, whether it is you end with a new job or like me, I'm still in the same job and I'm happier than I could have imagined. I thought successful people in this program will end with a new job. And for me, I got out much more than a new job, and being happy where I am now is exactly where I want to be. Blake, I think about that because I can't remember if it was the intake or the first official call. And I told you, I said, I talked to my VP, I'm quitting. And you were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I was like, no, I am though. And now that's at this point, what would it have been? 4 months of lost wages, not my year-end bonus. And it's crazy. Mm-hmm. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's always the hardest part for me, because when you came in, you were in a situation that's so, it's a common. I'm super stressed out. I'm at the end of my rope. I feel like I have to quit. And you probably were. I think I should quit my job before I do this program so that I have the time and energy to do it.
I don't have, exactly.
And I often tell women, I'm like, just give me 3 to 4 weeks and your entire life could be drastically different. And I often say 85% of the time, those women end up staying in their job much happier, much safer, right? Bringing in income while building that path. 15% of the time it is like, no, it is right for you to quit, but then you're doing it with a strategy and a plan and you're clear on it. And so I look at where you're at, and it's such a beautiful thing, because if you hadn't taken this path and you had done what you always did and you didn't step forward in faith in yourself, not only would you have missed all of that income, you wouldn't have had the learnings that you've had. You've been able to create so much more balance, all these wonderful things in your personal life. And now you're in a great position in your job where you're like, I don't need to leave. I'm continuing to grow and I'm continuing to explore what's right and next for me. So Absolutely. It gives you all of the power.
Absolutely. I feel like that's it. Like I have the power now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you guys listening, always appreciate you. And until next time, sending you all of the best. Thanks for joining me today. Rather than hope the grass will be greener, identify what the right next step is. We can help you do just that. Get clarity on where you are in your journey to career fulfillment, where you're headed, optimal paths to get there, and the right next step to take. Start your complimentary personalized career fulfillment plan at www.thebridgetofulfillment.com/plan. Again, you can get your personalized career fulfillment plan at thebridgetofulfillment.com/plan. Thanks again for joining, and have a great week ahead.